The final one is titled, Comments about his ex's body when pregnant and postpartum are worrying me. He hasn't wanted to be intimate while I'm pregnant, so it's been about 5 months now since we've had any intimacy beyond cuddling, which is okay. I know his job is stressful right now, mine is too. I wish we could be intimate, and I think about it all the time, but I try to be compassionate and understanding. The only thing that's really got me worried is thinking back on some comments that he made to me about his ex that I should have seen as red flags, and I'm starting to stress myself out thinking about what might happen when I'm postpartum. He and his ex had a really horrible relationship. They fought a lot and she ended up cheating on him multiple times before they eventually split up. He told me that they got into arguments because he would try to kindly tell her that she was overweight after having their child and tried to help her to get healthy again, but she just blamed him for her getting fat and refused to try. He mentioned that one time they were having sex when she was pregnant and he looked over at the mirror over their dresser and immediately lost his erection because of how fat she looked. Not her baby bump, but her whole body. He's made quite a few body shaming comments to me about how she looks now, several years later. Tonight, I made a comment about how I feel like a balloon because I've been swollen the last couple of days and have gotten some stretch marks on my upper thighs. He said, "You'll go back to the way you were, don't worry about it." And I said that not everyone bounces back like that. He immediately responded with, "You're just going to blame it on getting pregnant. You can bounce back, you just have to actually try." I explained that I just meant that not everyone goes right back to how they were, even if they work out, and he didn't respond. I tried to just go to sleep, but I couldn't stop from crying, thinking about how he might make me feel if I don't get my body back right away, and then I got myself into a downward spiral thinking that he already sees me that way, and that's why he doesn't want to be intimate with me. I'm already an active person. I work 2 jobs and I'm on my feet all day. I still work out when I have the time and energy. I'm part-time military, so I try to stay in shape because I will need to prepare for PT tests once I'm cleared by the doctor postpartum. I don't want to have to feel like I'm not doing enough, and I'm scared that I didn't read the warning signs when he said those things to me about his ex. This is quite scary. I think if I were in this situation, I would also find it quite scary. To me, the thing that is most scary about it is that she's not able to have this conversation with him directly. So if he had a problem, like honestly, I would completely say, okay, yeah, I understand that you think that I'll bounce back, but what would happen if it takes me a year? What if it takes me 2 years? What type of bouncing back do you envision? Like, what's actually important to you? What was it about your ex that really was such a big problem for you? Was it the fact that she wasn't willing to work on her weight at all? And how did you approach that with her? How did you discuss it? What did you do? Did you do anything about diet? These are all questions that I would have for him. And that's not even counting the main problem that she has, which is the lack of intimacy. That should be a conversation that you're able to have in a marriage as well. So I find this, I mean, I say marriage, I don't even know if they're married or not. Maybe they're just, partners. I find this quite, like, I am one of those people, honestly, just to be very direct and very, very open about it. I do not want to become overweight. And I definitely had the concern when I got pregnant because I put on quite a shocking to me amount of weight during my pregnancy. I was kind of like, man, this is actually really terrifying, and I'm not into it, and I don't enjoy it at all. And I also know that my husband would not find me very attractive if I was overweight, in the same way that I would not find him very attractive if he was overweight. And so we're both very direct with each other. If he ever put on enough weight that I noticed it and had a problem with it, I would mention it to him, and he would do the same to me. So we're very upfront there. I do not think that this is fundamentally body shaming, because I don't think it's so much about the looks, although it's partly about the attractiveness of it. It is largely about health, and especially when you're still pretty young, the idea of putting on weight gradually over 20 or 30 years of living together is not a prospect that either of us find particularly appealing. We definitely think that will restrict our lives in old age a lot. So that's where we are as a married couple. I find it really just a giant problem that people are not able to have these conversations with each other openly and honestly when they're married or when they're together or when they're having kids together, especially. And especially when it comes to pregnancy, where you do have this experience of putting on a ton of weight. For the majority of women, you will put on a whole bunch of weight while you're pregnant. And, a lot of that weight is the weight of the baby, the weight of the placenta, the weight of the fluid in the amniotic sac. These are all normal things. Like you cannot change that. Just even the blood volume, your blood volume goes up by like 50% when you're pregnant. So there are physiological changes that are very, very different from putting on actual just fat, which I guess is what this is talking about and what this is referring to. And that isn't even to say that you won't put on fat as well, because you will put on some fat as well. That is the way that it has to be for your body to be able to sustain another human life. And so it's not even so much about the weight part. It's really just about the fact that they can't talk to each other, and she doesn't trust him to talk about it. And the way that it's interesting to me that she says he told her all of this way before, but she didn't even register it as a red flag until now. She's having this experience where they're not intimate and she's pregnant, and suddenly she's like, maybe that was the problem. And so I don't understand, again, how you end up in these situations with people who you just cannot trust to this extent. I totally get that sometimes you do trust them 90% of the time, and then every now and then they say something that makes you go, that's dodgy. I don't quite understand where that's coming from. But to not have enough security in your relationship that you can say, I think that this is a problem, and I have all of these terrible thoughts about these things that you said to me before about your ex, and it's making me feel really insecure, and the fact that we haven't been intimate for really long is making me feel really insecure. What's going on? How can we deal with it? What can we do together that this doesn't happen to us, and that I don't feel like you hate how I look, which is a really major problem. I think it just makes me very sad that she does not seem to be able to have that conversation with him, because I think that fundamentally that's the only thing you can do. The only thing that will make you feel better is if you actually sat down and talked to each other about it, and he gave you the impression that he still appreciates you for who you are beyond your appearance, and that his understanding of bouncing back, I would hope, is not that your body will look 100% the same post-baby as it does pre-baby, because there will be changes, and probably a lot of those changes will be sustained. So it's not that your body will completely go back to how it was, but that does not necessarily mean that your weight needs to be significantly higher for the foreseeable future just because you went through a pregnancy. And I would be very curious to know, like, how much of a difference did he experience with his ex that this stuck in his head so much that he still makes these comments years afterwards. Like, that sounds strange. OP adds a little bit more here. She says, another thing that plays in my head was that he told me that he's just a visual guy and that he can't get into it with girls that don't look a certain way. He said this following a comment on my body after I had gone through really difficult training that caused me to lose some weight. And he mentioned that I had the best body of any girl he had been with. A few months after the training, we both returned to our normal healthy weight, and he never made a comment like that again. Now, I don't know, maybe he just really likes ripped women. Seems like that might be the case, in which case I probably would try to explain to him that being ripped as a woman is actually not very healthy for you. It's not very good for your metabolism, and it's not very good for your hormones. It's not very good for your long-term health as a woman at all. Men can maintain a much lower body fat percentage than women can for a much longer period of time, just because they also don't have like hips or breasts. The next one here says, he sounds like a jerk to me. I was so self-conscious during my pregnancy, and my husband always made sure to let me know how beautiful he thought my body was, regardless of the weight gain. Even now, 16 months postpartum and the heaviest I have ever been in my life, my husband constantly tells me how much he loves my body and that he doesn't care about my weight because I carried our son, and that's beautiful. He doesn't just say these things, but he shows me as well. If I complain about my body or my weight, he lets me know that he will help me and support me in my weight loss journey if that's what I want, but also reminds me that I've carried 3 babies and my body is strong and beautiful. And it's really amazing to me when people have these types of conversations and they have this kind of relationship that husbands really are totally open with it and they don't mind weight gain at all. I think that's awesome. I would, for myself, always say, like, I would not be comfortable with myself at 16 months postpartum if I'm saying something like, this is the heaviest that I've ever been in my life. I would probably say 16 months postpartum is enough time after having a baby that, you know what, I could change it. And yeah, okay, my body has gone through a lot and has carried lots of babies, and that's awesome. And I'm amazed that my body was able to do that. But I just do not want to carry a ton of weight on me for the rest of my life. And I don't think if my husband were to try to encourage me to lose weight, that makes him a bad husband either. Next one says, unfortunately, I don't think he will change after the baby is here. This doesn't sound like a pregnancy or postpartum thing. This sounds like he's just a body shaming pig, period. I'm sure that's not what you want to hear, but I want you to be prepared. He will likely be very critical of your body during postpartum. He will likely put unnecessary pressure on you and make comments about what you're eating. I think you should prepare for this now so that you can try to avoid these things if possible. You're going to have plenty of things to be emotional about during postpartum. Please don't let him add this to your plate. And to this, I would fundamentally say you need to talk about it before you get there. Like, come on. The way that people always... I don't understand how this comment is meant to be helpful, because it just sounds like fear-mongering to me. It sounds like saying, yeah, you know what, postpartum is going to be really awful. You can expect him to be a totally horrible person during your postpartum period as well. And therefore, if you just mentally prepare yourself for this experience, then it's going to be less painful than if you're not prepared for it. And maybe that's true to some extent, but you know what? If I actually care about myself and I care about my baby and I care about my relationship, I would not want that to be the case. I would want him to be on my side and I would want to feel supported during that time as well. OP replies here, what's confusing is that he always wants to eat unhealthy, take out meals together because we love food. He always tells me to eat or tries to get me to have the last of whatever we got. Even before I got pregnant, we would always enjoy our food together. He just thinks that women can work out, lift weights, and they'll stay what he considers fit because that's what works for him as a tall, slender male. I have to tell him all the time that I don't need to eat the same portions as him when we're eating together. He doesn't seem to understand that when I was the ideal body type to him, I was physically exhausted every day and not getting enough food to sustain myself in a military setting. And that makes it very clear to me that you guys need to get on the same page in terms of what are his actual expectations towards your body. Like, how does he think that you're going to look? What are his expectations from a dietary standpoint? Because if he's encouraging you to eat a ton of unhealthy fast food type meals, then this is obviously a problem. Then he's giving you mixed signals here. And if he really is just totally unrealistic and he has this image of the perfect woman and she's kind of like a bodybuilder type woman with less than 10% body fat, then you do need to have a conversation at some point about how that's not real. Like, he needs to understand that that's not a thing that actually exists in real life that women can sustain for a long period of time. So this is one of those examples where you get pretty far. We don't get any hint at all of what the rest of their relationship is like. You get pretty far in the relationship. Now you're about to have a child, but somehow you still seem to be on totally opposite ends of the spectrum about quite fundamental and important things that matter to both of you. And this idea of how attractive you feel to him and how attractive he feels to you and how open you are about that, like that's the foundation. Like, that's a really big foundation of any healthy relationship. So you have to be able to talk about these things together. This is another one of those circumstances where I would say, how did you end up here? And why are you having a child with someone who is making you so insecure about yourself that you're not even sure how you're going to get through the postpartum period without him bringing you down? That's really rough.